Dear listeners, welcome to the AIWA channel Astro with Abhi, Oneness in Astrology and Spirituality, bringing in awareness by Abhi. This question I got a couple of days ago. Abhi, why is it important to control the mind? You always talk about controlling the mind. Why is it important to control the mind? This is a very simple question to answer. And I can understand why this person is asking this question because in her role, she's always asked to use her mind. If she doesn't use her mind, a mistake can cost somebody's life. So the follow-up question is, hi Abhi, why is it important to surrender the mind if all I am doing is using my mind, and this is where I've gotten myself so far to the use of my mind. Why should I surrender my mind? I can understand these type of questions. I can very much understand it. There's another question here. Hi Abhi, please can you explain to me why is it important to surrender the mind when in my function at my work it's very important to use my mind. This is a similar question. Here's another question. Abi, how do I surrender the mind? I have answered this question on another podcast, so I'm not going to actually answer this here, but I'll keep this straight to the only question which we've discussed from three people. Is hi Abi, why is it important to surrender the mind if my key function is to use my mind because my job entails the use of my mind? Okay, there's a very big difference between using your mind to create something that is sweet, life giving. And it's very different in using your mind at the expense of life. Now, this is how we got to look at it, guys. Dear listeners, using the mind is very important. Yes. So, when I say surrender the mind, I am talking about dissolving the mind so there is absolutely nothingness. This is not in relation to your work that you do. This is in direct relation to when you are not doing your work. It's very important to surrender the mind. When you are not working, what are you doing? If your job requires you to use your mind, what do you do after your job? So my question is, if you are using your mind to work, which is good, after your work finishes, what are you doing with your mind? Now, this is what I'm talking about. After you finish your work, when you are not working, when you are not required to use your mind at work, what are you doing with that very same mind? Now, this is what I am tackling. I'm tackling the mind that is doing its own bits, adding and multiplying things which don't exist, thinking about days that haven't happened yet, thinking about days that happened 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 20 days ago, 2 months ago. They are not existing right now, but they're in the mind. What does this do? This alters frequency, it alters state of consciousness. It makes you live in a moment that doesn't exist right now. You take the form of where your mind is. So if you are thinking of a trauma that happened 10 years ago, you're now taking the form of that trauma. You are bringing that to reality now. So what you are doing is you are doing injustice to the spirit through the use of your mind. So, intelligence means surrendering the mind to not bring injustice. But then you can also be using the mind to create something of substantial value. But here I'm not talking about work. I'm talking about the days in between, the nights in between your work, or while you're not working. It's very, very important to make sure that whilst the mind is working, the mind is focused only on things that are beneficial to life, that is bringing life to its greatest potential. We talk about saving lives if you're a doctor. We are talking about treating sicknesses, surgeries, talking about those things. And outside, your practice or outside the workspace, where is that very same mind going? If you don't have control over that mind, that same mind can become absolutely toxic to your very own self, which in turn can become toxic to everybody else around. So this is what I refer to as surrendering the mind. Surrendering the mind so that it does not do its own thing and you gain control of the mind. If you have no control over the mind, you will never find or realize peace. You have to be in control of the mind and not the other way. If you are not in control of the mind will take you to every single place which but now, but the present. It'll take you to every single place which is going to alter your frequency and allow you to take the form of that, vibrating in that frequency where the realities of that frequency you start to live and experience. And this is in most cases very, very low. So if you are thinking about trauma, if you have um, if you are fearing economic insecurities in the future, those things don't exist now. You've now created a form. You've now started to vibrate in that frequency. So it now becomes a reality to you for something that don't exist. You see, so therefore, surrendering the mind is, for me personally, the most important thing for all life. Because if all life can control the mind, then all life will be in a position to experience its highest potential. And this is not a 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year thing. It's an everyday thing. And one has to be very patient because there's no difference from patience and light. There's no difference from patience and God. One has to be very patient. One has to be very consistent in this approach. When you're consistent, it becomes from a conscious happening, it becomes an unconscious happening of surrendering the mind. The mind will be dissolving all the trauma it's building every moment. It will be dissolving it unconsciously when there's consistency. So when you are consistent in dissolving the mind daily, every night, after some time, it becomes a unconscious happening. So you are never taking on anything and you're putting it in the back shelf to store there. You're not taking things to put in the back shelf to store to for one day to come out and play. You know, to you are basically dissolving it at the very moment, at the very onset that it enters. And this is the best way for me personally that I like to live. And it has brought about, I won't say brought about, it helps you to realize what you actually are, which is peace in its original form, which is peace, ecstasy in its real truest form. And is this the end all and be all? No, this is my state of consciousness at my current state of consciousness, and there is definitely more to this here. But I'm just answering it from my state of awareness, so I hope you do get it. So, Jai Shri Ram, Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you very much, dear listeners. Bye.